Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this video, we are going to take a look at a handful of books that have seen their values come down. And the big question is now the time to snag these books? I hope that you enjoyed this video, and by chance, if you do, I want to encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and that way you won't miss out on any of the content that I release here on YouTube. Stay tuned. All right, so the very first book that we're going to look at is one of my personal favorites, and it takes me directly back to my childhood. This is G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue number 1 from 1982. Although I did not read this comic until much later in life, the cartoon I felt was amazing. So I wanted to spotlight this book, and we're going to go ahead and drill into the data. With this book, I personally want to look at the 9.8. I do not own a 9.8, but I think that this would be a really great spot to get into this book if you have the opportunity. So the 9.8 has about 800 copies on the census, and a little bit less than half of those have exchanged hands in recent days. The FMV for this book is sitting at around $1,100, and you can see how the value of this book is played out from the 1 year to the 90-day to the 30-day. There's definitely been a downward slope to the value of this book. So let's go ahead and click on it and take a look at the graphic here, and you can see illustrated very nicely that downward slope to this book. And most recently in October, this book is basically selling for $992. And if we back up just a couple of months to the month of August, this book was going for $13.14, and that represents a $322 decline in just a couple of months. But if we back up a while here, we can see that this book hit a high watermark. I mean, this is a high watermark of this book at $24.42 in May of 2001. And so the question has to be asked, is now a good time to get into this book? And potentially it is, right? You look at the value of this book that has dropped certainly from its high watermark in 2021, but even recent months, there's been a decline. And one of the big questions is, has this book reached the bottom? Has it reached the bottom? Is this the new bottom? At the end of the day, we honestly don't know. I will tell you that this is a great book. There's no doubt about that. The G.I. Joe franchise, in my mind, is a great franchise. I think maybe it suffered some setbacks with some of the movies that have come out. They have not necessarily all been received. But one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to backtrack in time. And I wanted to look at where this book was back in 2020. And so I went to December 2020. This book back then, a couple of years ago, was selling for $928. And if you fast forward a couple of years to October of 2022, you can see that this book isn't too far off of where it was a couple of years ago. And so the question is this book at its bottom? Is this the new reset value for this book? Is this the new baseline? I honestly, again, do not know what the future holds for this book, but it is some pretty interesting data when you look at where this book was in 2020, where it went in 2021, and where it is now in 2022. The big question, of course, will be, where will it be in the future? And unfortunately, none of us know that, but one of the questions folks are going to have to ask themselves is this a book that you want to snag now, or will you wait to see what the future holds? And I think this is important, especially if you consider yourself to be a G.I. Joe fan, or you love the nostalgia that comes with the 1980s. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next book. And I think this next book is a pretty interesting book. This book was super hot. This book was super hot because of what was happening just generally in the world. Like every book shot up in value. I don't know that this book did all that much as a result of the Netflix show. And I think the Netflix show was pretty well received. We still don't know whether there's going to be a season 2. But I think that potentially this book did not perform differently as a result of the Netflix show that came out. And you guys that are, much more in tune with when movies come out and all that kind of stuff, you may be able to have a different interpretation. I welcome your thoughts down in the comment section. I should also mention that if you have not subscribed to the channel, Definitely want to encourage you to do that. But with this book, this is Sandman issue number 1, right? This is the first appearance of the Master of Dreams, a Neil Gaiman story. And so I want to look at the 9.8 for this one. There are a healthy number of copies. I've owned 2 of them. I think I still have one in the collection. The census count on this is slightly above 1,000 copies. About half of that or so has sold, 588 sales. The fair market value, according to Go Collect, is sitting at 775, and you can see what has happened to the value at the 1 year, the 90-day, and also the 30-day average. So let's go ahead and drill down. We'll try to make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. But when you drill down into the data around the 9.8, you can see that this book is definitely down versus where it was during, the pandemic, when a lot of books took off in value. Most recently, this book is in October selling for $811. And if we back up and we're using August right now, in August, this book was going for $901. So you're only talking about a decline of around $90. And the question is, would this book potentially have fallen more had it not been for the Netflix series? Is it still kind of holding its value because of the belief that maybe there's a season 2? I honestly don't know. But you back up a couple of months, in March, this book was selling for $1,500. There was a massive fall off. Where did that land? There's a fall off that almost took it to where it is in present day. In January, the start of this year, this book was selling for $943. But you back up, looks like its high water mark was $1,720 in June of 2001. And so again, right now we are sitting at $811. Let's back up to December. December 2020, this book was going for $659, right? $659 in December of 2020. At present, we are at $811. And the question is this the new baseline? Has the book reset? And is this the new higher baseline that people are expecting, right? Because a lot of people believe that, comic values would fall, but they would not fall to the historic lows. They felt like they would be slightly higher. Potentially, this is the new higher value. And your floor value for this book, is it $800 or so? Only time will tell. But again, if you happen to be a Neil Gaiman fan, a Sandman fan, if you believe that there is some magic to be made with season 2 of Sandman, then potentially this is a book that you might want to pick up. Fair market value, again, is not terrible. It's not terrible at all. Let's look at some of the individual sales. Man, somebody got a smoking deal here in September 30th. They clearly picked it up for less than the buy it now offer. I'm sorry, it's the best offer of around $400. So somebody got a smoking deal that day. I don't know what that was about, but that I wanted to show that book again because Sandman has been like a little bit of the rage, if you will, just because of the Netflix series and all the uncertainty about what the future holds. We've heard Neil Gaiman come out and basically say season 2 will happen. They are currently writing season 2. And so I think that they are hopeful that there will be one on Netflix or some other streaming platform. So we'll have to see what the future holds for that. So the very last book that I wanted to look at is one that may have its value still slightly elevated because of the expectation that this character may find its way to an MCU movie, potentially in the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think there's a lot of people that believe that could happen. Only time will tell. That book that we're talking about is The Man Called Nova, issue number 1. This is, of course, the first appearance of Nova, also the origin as well. And so, again, with this book that was released in 1976, my year of birth, I thought we would look at the 9.8. That it would be, in my mind, again, a sweet place to get in. You'll have to look at the other values to figure out if the trends that I'm talking about hold true, if the logic still holds true for the grade that you happen to pick up if you do decide to pull the trigger. There are 531 copies of this book on the census. A lot of them have traded hands, 322 to be exact. The fair market value for this book is sitting at $1,550. And you can see here that a year ago, this book was selling for $2,224. And the 30-day average is a lot lower at about $1,598. So let's go ahead and click into this one and see what this looks like. We can see, again, graphically how the present dollar value of this book is performing. At present, this book is going for about $1,500 in the month of October. And if we back up to August, this book was going for $1,900. And that is a few $100 decline between where it was in August and where it is presently. And you can again see that kind of play out here on this right hand side, and certainly with that fair market value. But this book at one point was going for, wow, that's a legit chunk of money, and I don't feel like it was all that long ago, right? March, this book was going for $26.88, and I want to back up a little bit more. In May, it was going for $24, but that's definitely the high watermark. So in March of this year, this book was going for $26, and right now we are at $14. That is a heck of a fall off. And if we back up to December, if we can find December 2020, what was this book going for? This book was going for $1,000. So again, is this the new baseline for Nova issue number 1, right? Slightly higher baseline than before. Is this the new baseline, or will it backtrack and go to some of these more some of these lower prices, which were around $800 or so dollars? If we back up even more, the book was going for only about $600 back in 2018. Again, I don't know if we're going to see these values again. Only time will tell how it plays out, but potentially this could be the new higher reset for this book. And certainly if something happens with Richard Rider or Nova in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, you could see that downward trend start to correct itself if those things indeed happen. So just a couple of cool books that I wanted to show you guys. G.I. Joe issue number 1, Sandman issue number 1, and Nova issue number 1. We only looked at the 9.8s, again, for the reasons that I described, and you'll have to figure out whether, again, the trends and the logic hold true for the book or the grade that you might be looking at. If you are interested in seeing me speak a little bit about a book that you're thinking about picking up, I definitely want to encourage you to sound off in the comment section. Let me know what that book is, and maybe we will spotlight it in a future video. And as I mentioned, if you are not following the channel, I definitely want to encourage you to do that. And at a minimum, just go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Just go ahead, at a minimum, do that. And if you're feeling frisky, go ahead and follow and also subscribe. As always, if you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.